and live.
All right, so we are here for our second meeting. I still don't have a gavel. I mean, you look like you should have a gavel there, cabinet meeting. I am the department chair and here with my colleague, the cabinet.
Yep,
And
present.
we're there you go. We're gonna go over some things that we've obviously seen in the next week here since our last meeting was adjourned. We have some interesting things going on, obviously, in the country, some interesting things going on abroad and we're going to kind of dive into those and see if this new president to be, with Donald Trump's small chance of still succeeding, we'll have to see what his new game plan is for some of the stuff going on in our country.
Yep.
So, first off, I guess I'll be doing the first thing here. The article I have to bring to the table, and so much has been going on as of late with the states still doing some counting. I mean, wasn't was Georgia called today, or North Carolina was called today for Trump, but obviously Biden
I
has
think
already
North
got
Carolina
the
was called. I think most of the states have rules that if the difference is less than 1%, there's an automatic recount, or there can be, and then there are all manner of other challenges that either candidate could bring legally.
there. And Georgia, Georgia's the interesting one, being as close as it is, and the first to openly say they were going to do a recount. And obviously, with that special race going on for that second Senate seat, it's going to get real hot over there in the next few weeks, especially considering the fate of the Senate looks like
Yeah, but
it's
there are actually two Senate seats up for grabs in Georgia.
right. But isn't I think the one's
They're
almost
both going
called.
into special elections.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
All right. So
geez.
Georgia has a
Oh,
rule that
right.
if you get less than 50% of the vote, let's say each candidate got like 48%, or the first, let's say the top candidate got 48, and the next one got 46, and you had some, a couple like third parties in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Georgia doesn't care for that spoiler effect, as it were. So the way they handle it is sort of like a very slow. Um, it's like a very slow prioritized voting system. Like a lot of people are fans of this, like choose your priorities. So Georgia has a runoff election where you can't win the seat unless you have more than 50% of
Right.
the vote. So they just take the two highest and then do a runoff election, which has
Right.
roughly the same effect. But it's interesting.
And I mean, one of the things I could have brought to bear actually today was to some of the interesting things going on in the media and in social media in regards to people jokingly saying, run to Georgia and sit there for a few weeks so you can vote. Like some of the stuff is outrageous that the voting has really turned into a war
Yeah,
between
I mean,
the
look, if you want to really move and change your postal code and file the correct papers, like,
right.
okay, more power to you, I guess. I certainly don't want to do that.
No,
Um, Thankfully, I live in a purple state where my vote matters more than it might otherwise, so I guess I don't have to contemplate these things. I guess if I lived in New York or California, I might feel more of a compunction.
mm-hmm.
No, not really. It can't be worth it. Anyways,
But that's what's going down, at least recently. But I guess we're going to get right into it here. And I'll bring the first document to bear.
yeah, I have it up.
So, yeah, excellent, excellent. Let me see here. Excellent. All right. So first off, with Donald Trump again in the possibility of losing his presidency. Obviously, everyone's still talking about COVID, and with the last few weeks here, the numbers of COVID have been rising and rising steadily. I know where I live specifically, they're talking about closing down the schools, and probably as you heard, there's excuse me, not a district, but a county very close to us that is already talking about closing down certain things. So obviously all eyes are on the Biden coming administration to see, okay, so what is your game plan? And the headline here, we have the Biden COVID advisor says U.S. lockdown of 4 to 6 weeks could control the pandemic and revive the economy. So this Dr. Michael
Is that what I'm looking at? I'm
Osterholm,
looking at Biden advisors, Nick's
yeah,
national U.S. lockdown. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, this guy who I believe, yeah, and apparently this guy was fired or left on his own will of the Trump administration of his COVID team and has thus since joined Biden's COVID team. Apparently, he
which
was.
is often typical as administrations change hands, right? That the people who are on the outs
Hmm.
run to the other side.
Hmm.
So
And he,
that's politics as usual.
right. So,
Obviously, the COVID response is political. Whether or
hmm.
not people want to admit it, it has become so very quickly.
Hmm. And that's what it's turned into. And Dr. Osterholm here is proposing, or apparently proposed on he was doing an interview on Yahoo Finance, and specifically he proposed a 4 to 6 week, basically lockdown would be the way to counter the coronavirus. Um, and he specifically mentioned that, oh well, the government can pay for everyone's fees, can back pay everything, and we would be in a perfect setup to get a handle on this coronavirus now before it gets out of hand, before it turns into a sort of a COVID hell, is what's swirling around the internet now
Okay,
as to what
that's
is.
not how this article is presenting things at all. I don't think. So I'm on Reuters, right?
No, the which article? Oh,
Oh,
I
maybe I'm
sent
reading the
you
wrong
the.
article.
Yes, I sent you the other
Because
article.
this one presents things like this. Osterholm seems very reasonable. He's like, well, we'd like to lock things down, but nobody's actually going to support it. Um, I don't care for the cut of his jib regardless, but I don't think that's the. You found something much more extreme.
Right. My bad. Here, I'll send it to you. I thought I sent you this one. Maybe I accidentally copy pasted the wrong thing. Holy smokes!
It's all good.
Oh, this is why the
It's kind
internet
of interesting how different this article is because if somebody read Reuters, they would get one version of events, and
yeah,
apparently, if someone read CNBC,
yeah. And look at that. I mean, we just stumbled into this due to my mistake. Um,
and now it might be different timing. Like far be it from me to criticize the enlightened purveyors of information.
mhm.
Um, November 13th, 10:38 a.m. November 11th, 4:23 p.m. So your article is older,
Well, look at
and so
the
perhaps the difference is a difference between intentions and reality.
when was the Reuters article published?
Your article is older
Well, no.
by
When
about
when
two
was the
days.
well, no. When specifically when was the Reuters article published? The 11th.
Uh, it claims to have been updated November 13th.
Okay, and so does the CNBC article.
Oh, okay. You're right. You're right. So they probably are the same age. But yeah, the
But
Reuters article is very bland. So let me get into the CNBC article.
well, that's I don't know. For me, that's the way I like it. Just tell me the news. Don't
What I mean is
opinionize
like
it.
the crazy quotes weren't in there. There was nothing about paying for people's wages. There was nothing about massive shifts in domestic policy.
Right.
It was like, well, we'd like to shut things down, but we can't really. There's not a lot of support, and that was the whole article.
That's see, I accidentally sent you the wrong one. I was looking at that one, but then I inevitably chose this one. I
No,
think
no,
I
it's
might have
cool.
accidentally.
I should get out of your way. You go ahead. Continue with the article.
Oh no, please point out when I make mistakes. But again, that's an incredible moment right there, just to see the difference between obviously two media sources and then perhaps their individual perspectives of this doctor here. But moving on. Um, so he was essentially suggesting that this 4 to 6 week lockdown would be a good idea, that it would fix things, and that the government could, and I'll quote, we could pay for a package right now to cover all of the wages, lost wages for individual workers, for losses to small companies, to medium-sized companies, or a city, state, county governments. We could do all of that, he said.
Well, at the rate we're
If
printing money, why shouldn't we?
Right, if we did that, then we could lock down for 4 to 6 weeks.
I
So I
mean,
mean,
20 trillion, 200 trillion. What's the difference, really?
just keep printing.
Yeah,
Printing, 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 printing.
seems to be the uh, institutional wisdom.
All intertwined. Dude, go ahead. Be locked down. We'll just print more money. I mean, it's on the curve of what they want anyway. In the end,
Although
at least.
one begins to wonder what one is being taxed for at all,
Here you go.
given that the disparity between what is paid out and what is taxed, what is collected through taxes, increasingly making the tax collection irrelevant.
hmm And right above that quote that I just read, I jumped a little bit ahead there. The third paragraph, um, and it's interesting. It's right above the weekly paper package right now. Quote:
Mm-hmm.
A nationwide lockdown would drive the number of new cases and hospitalizations down to manageable levels, while the world awaited a vaccine. He told Yahoo Finance on
Is the world
Wednesday.
awaiting a vaccine, or is the U.S. awaiting a vaccine?
Well, I guess we're all individually waiting for a vaccine, depending on what
Hmm.
country. I mean, everyone's on their
I
own.
heard a rumor that the vaccine might be sent to other countries before it was used in the U.S.
At this rate, who
It's all
knows?
rumors, right?
Right. It's
Yeah.
all out there. It's the point where we have absolutely no idea what could happen. But this is all part of that, at least from what I understand, and probably what you have heard and what I have heard, the flatten the curve mentality. Um, so many people I've talked to, very close to us, are saying, "Well, we have to flatten the curve. We have to make sure that things are managed for hospitals." And I mean, obviously that's important, but in the same instance, half of me says I understand. The other half of me says you're never. It's not going to matter. No matter what policy you put in place, no matter what you say from the higher up, regardless of who it is, this thing is going to go through parts of the country and it's going to do what it's going to do. But then again,
Well, yes, that was the conventional wisdom on plagues throughout most of human history.
right,
We have now uh, managed to fashion together, with all of our wisdom and technology, the hubris necessary to believe that we can confront one head on.
right. And you have literally taken the words out of my mouth. I mean, I essentially was just going to say the same thing. Why why do we think we can control this? I mean, obviously, with the advancements in technology and better understanding of how these things work, we still feel smarter, but we are still so small. Um, but I guess if we do nothing, or at least the perspective of some individuals, um, if we do nothing, then just might as well do nothing at all. But yeah,
I have an answer to your question, why?
go for it.
I think I gave this answer last week. Um, if you check the Austrian economist F.A. Hayek, uh, his answer is that it is the fatal conceit of intellectuals
Mm-hmm,
to believe that they have an answer for everything.
mm-hmm. And yeah,
He wrote a whole book on it.
yeah, and that's there you go. Yeah, it is. We are at an impasse, and that's what I'm almost. I don't even want to say this. I almost can't wait to see what is the new plan that the Biden administration is going to have. That is so much better. That is so much more advanced. That is the right way. I was about to say, this is the way of watching so much Mandalorian.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
What is
Yeah.
the way, Joe
It is
Biden?
known.
What is yes, what is the way? I want to know what you're going to do
It is
that is the
known.
way.
I don't know. I think that the people there's there's three kinds of people in the United States dealing with the virus right now. People who are deathly afraid of it, perhaps more than they need be because they've bought into the fear mongering.
Mm-hmm,
People who are perhaps not as afraid of it as they should be, because whatever you're for, I'm again it.
mm-hmm,
Um, and who could blame them after being sort of gaslit for so long?
mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's people in the middle who just kind of want to be able to go about their lives and are waiting for this to end. And they're not sure when it's going to end, but they don't really care what ends it.
The quote pandemic fatigue that actually is in the
Yeah,
article itself.
and I think that's a growing number of people. But
Yes, it is.
I think that when I think people have short attention spans, and that when the new administration takes over, and when the political advantages of the lockdowns go away, the lockdowns will go away. And oh, look at that, we're not tracking the virus too much anymore. We're not paying too much attention to what percentage or whatever, and it'll run its course.
Right, slowly falls out of mind.
Yep. There'll be some new crisis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there will be whatever the next policy agenda is. And look, I'm not saying, I don't want to imply that I'm a person who believes that um, that this plague is invented. It is not. It's
Right.
real, and probably it wasn't done on purpose. Although we could attribute a good bit of negligence to China's part, if nothing else, and perhaps some malice. Although good luck proving that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just stick with negligence. Still,
Purposeful negligence,
no,
perhaps?
no, I don't have to go there, right? Like, so, it's easy enough to go there, but I don't even have to. Let's just say it's an accident, terrible
Okay.
accident,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all I'm ever going to prove.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, that doesn't mean the way it's been handled hasn't been to roll it up into a crisis, right?
Right.
To fill the sails with that smoke. So, um, let no crisis go to waste. It was an opportunity, and it was seized upon. And when it is no longer opportune, it will drift into the background, and some new thing will emerge, which can be seized upon for political advantage. So there's my cynical view of what happens next spring, for instance, under a Biden administration, for whom the virus is no longer convenient.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're kind of walking around on the question I wanted to ask you to get your hot take. I just want to throw these last few things at you, just so you can get, I guess, the angst, the feel of the article that we were, obviously discussing. How this one's a little bit more scary,
Yeah,
at least in the
totally fair.
wording.
So,
Right. So basically, the article. I mean, I'm not going to go into everything just due to time constraints for this evening, but it goes into talking about essentially that this is not a that this individual, even though they're a representative of the Biden team, is like Biden team is not responding to questions like, is this the Biden team's plan? Essentially, they've actually steered away from it a little bit. Um, let's see, newsletter shutdown. Oh, a Biden transition official told NBC News that a shutdown, quote, is not in line with the president-elect's thinking. Apparently, it seems, at least what CNBC is poking at,
mm-hmm.
they're thinking of that the Biden team is going to be looking at a more targeted, quote, approach, where they're going to look at individual states to tell individual states when to shut down.
Right.
Now, is
So,
that
so again,
realistic?
as I predicted last spring, if if the previous administration had started doing that, um, the previous administration's opposition would have had ample fuel with which to say, look, authoritarian abuses of executive power.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um,
How dare you tell me
that will
what to
not be
do?
the narrative
But
this time around. This
but
will
this is
be, well, you
go
go ahead.
Well, that's what the funny thing is. You saying that if Trump, you go all the way back, and Trump was the one to tell states when to shut down. That's the ammunition that more than likely would have been used politically against him.
Yes.
It's my feeling now, and you know what? I shouldn't say it. Let me come back to it because
Yeah,
again,
yeah. Ask the question.
it, just ask the question. Does it line it up for you? All right, here we
I'm ready.
go. How is Biden going to change his COVID policy to look different than Trump's? Do you think it'll be hobbled purposefully? I'm leaving that open on purpose.
Okay. Um, so I think there will be no significant difference in policy, whether or not he wants to do more severe executive actions. there will be too much resistance to that at the state and local level.
Mhm.
And so there will only be a difference in narrative. So my bet is, so will Biden's policy be substantively different from Trump's on COVID? And my bet is no.
And don't forget that last part. Do you think it'll be hobbled purposefully? And I can further explain what I'm asking.
Well, okay. I mean, so you're saying, do I think that he'll say, well, we actually want to do this, but those people are stopping me?
Yes. Yes.
Um, yeah, I think that's part of the game that will be played. I think, but I think more. Yeah, the policy will not be substantively different. The narrative around it will be significantly different. So it will be a rebranding of the same policies.
Right.
So,
And he's going to, at least from what I'm thinking, he's going to look at Texas, Arkansas, Georgia. You're going to look at those states who are going to see this plan that he's going to put out saying that every state has to follow this plan. And they're essentially going to be like, nope, we're not going to do this, whether it's for political reasons or whatever. And then he can say, there it is. There's the reason the numbers are still rising.
right, it's
There's the reason.
if those yokels would get out of the way
Right. It's
and
lean
give me the
states.
power, then we could have things the way we want. Then we could have nice things, right?
Right.
Is those
And
people want bad things.
it's,
Um,
yeah, it's a
so
protection.
you're saying no. Well, you're saying yes. The policy will be substantively different, and
Well,
in the end, it won't. The results will be the same.
he is from what. All right, if you want to throw the question back on myself,
Yeah,
um,
you have to answer too, so we can record
right,
our success rate.
right, it is going to be the same box. It is going to be the same plan generally, except instead of just letting the states choose immediately what they want to do, he's going to come up with a plan that every state should follow, with no real backing, no real anything inside the box, nothing that's really going to make that happen, because he knows already that there is not much that really can be done to really affect it. Plus, I personally think he wants to hobble his own plan on purpose so that if it fails, he can just be like, previous administration did this.
Okay, so your
This is the
answer is
previous
yes, but no
administration.
teeth.
Right.
You're probably right.
It's an empty box with nothing in it.
But
It would
I'm
just
gonna
be
stick with my initial statement that there will be no change to the official policy substantively. So, in some ways, and we both hedged quite a bit.
right. Oh,
That,
it's
that's fair.
yeah. I just think he's going to have a plan that every state should attempt to follow,
Uh huh.
but knowing that not every state will follow it, and that is exactly what he wants. Because then he can, as you said, go right after Texas and all the red states and be like, it's their fault that this is happening. If you would just listen and
Okay.
go in every year.
So follow up. If that is true, will there be colors?
Will he? Will he go after the
No,
the
no, no,
red
no.
states?
I mean, is there going to be like a yellow, orange, red? Is it going to be like a terror warning level?
Just purely will there be colors?
Yes.
um, Probably
Yeah.
because
Probably.
numbers
All right.
are.
I'm betting hard yes on that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be colors because
I think
everyone's.
that's a sign of our times.
I
It's
mean, or do we go back
inane
to the
color
clock?
charts for how scared you should be.
Do you
Uh,
think because of the Biden's age, we'll go back to like the doomsday clock?
yeah,
we'll
we're gonna have like a. Oh my goodness.
roll back the
There
clock.
is still a doomsday clock somewhere. Like there's still a think tank whose job it is to stare at that thing and
I
decide how
mean,
many
hey,
minutes to midnight it's supposed to be.
right,
Um,
but like a COVID clock. We'll
yeah,
get a
yeah.
COVID clock.
COVID clock. So you're betting COVID clock.
No, I
Oh,
think you're
okay.
right. I think it's the colors, but I
Probably
want to say
colors.
COVID clock because it'd be
Uh, all right. Got it.
God.
Possibly a COVID clock.
Oh god. So that's my article.
All right, there's your predictions. I have a question for you. Will the United States and the UK reach a trade deal this year? Or will the UK be stuck using the WTO trade agreement, I guess, or will the UK be forced back into the EU?
Ooh.
I mean, the
Yeah. Well,
third one's kind of a curveball. But,
we'll start. Let's do one piece at a time. First
yep.
off, will there be a trade deal this year? Do you mean 2020 or 2021?
2021.
Okay. Um.
By the end of 2021, we'll say. So, including up to and including this year, or back to and including this year.
Oh, I want to hedge so bad, but I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go with yes.
Okay.
I'm going to go with yes because I don't think I don't think the UK can keep sitting there on the sidelines after leaving the EU and not getting a large enough trade deal to say, oh look, doing this was smart. Here's why. But the big wrench um, in those gears in that problem is COVID.
There's another huge wrench in that.
Yes, there's obviously another huge wrench.
The huge wrench in the U.S. UK trade deal is the NHS,
Mm-hmm,
the British National Health Service,
mm-hmm,
which um, our sticking point had been, hey, you can't have protectionist sort of policies with regards to price controls on
right.
drugs and equipment that make your market uncompetitive compared with the American market. And that is a sticking point for them because the NHS is a golden cow
Right.
of both British parties.
Mm-hmm.
However, you may be right with a Biden administration
I want to do a thing.
and a desire to reinstitute national health service in the United States. Maybe they could come to an arrangement.
Yep, I want to do a thing. I want to do a thing, even though it doesn't do anything. I want to do a thing.
Oh no,
That's
it would have to do a thing because I don't think the UK would be caving.
well, that's my point.
You
Is
know what
that
I
I
mean?
think
Like I think we would be restructuring our market, our health care product market to match the National Health Service regulations.
you're looking at doing
So
that
if you're
thing.
right, I think it's going to be a very dark path.
Well, I'm more looking at Joe Biden looking at the UK like I don't really care if it works in our favor or not. Now, mind you,
No,
you're going
but
to spin it
I
one way
think he
or
can
another.
use it, right? Because one of his
Right,
policy priorities is to reinstall the Affordable Care Act
right,
bigger and badder than ever.
right.
Right?
Now,
So if
Biden,
you're going to do that, then you can say, well, look, the UK is our ally, and we need to reach some kind of deal. And wouldn't it be great if we had a national health service just like they had?
so you're going that route. I don't think he's going to be able to get that close. I think he's more looking at the smaller picture of look,
They
I
will
did a
never
trade deal with the
agree
UK.
if you can't make that concession. They can't have it.
Right.
I don't think you're going
Let
to get a trade deal.
let the UK win.
Right?
I think he'll let the UK win for the sake of doing so. To say, look, I can do trade deals too,
You
and spin it that it helps us in some way.
you
Although
can't sign
pitching
that
will be
document with the UK without doing severe regulatory changes to the American medical system.
yeah, that depends on the deal.
UK can't stomach anything less.
But
I
we
think
don't
there's
have
a
to know that.
I think there's a cliff there, but
You think,
we'll
okay,
find out.
so,
So you say yes, they can cut a deal. I say no, they can't
yeah,
cut a trade deal. They're going to be on WTO terms, or the UK will go back into the EU.
okay. I don't think the UK is going to go back to the
And
EU.
here's why I think that. I have my article. It's my turn.
Right. I'm sorry.
Haha!
You asked me a question, but you have three.
It
You
was
gave
a
me three
sneaky question.
questions.
My
Ah,
article is
question.
UK Prime Minister's advisor Dominic Cummings, quits immediately amid Downing Street power struggle.
Hmm.
The moderates inside Boris Johnson's cabinet have pushed out the stodgy old sort of conservatives, liberals, whatever the British party that is not the socialists.
Right.
um, I think that that party has lost its internal power struggle, and
Mm-hmm.
and Boris Johnson is going to have a very bad year because he's going to look more and more like Theresa May.
Yeah.
Dominic Cummings, one of the most influential and high-profile aides of the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, left Downing Street after a power struggle that has rocked the UK government. Media
Mm-hmm.
reports Saturday Johnson's senior advisor exited Number 10. Number 10 is there, like Pennsylvania
Mm-hmm.
Avenue.
Yep.
Um, carrying a large box on Friday evening following a bitter dispute that also led to the resignation of his fellow Vote Leave veteran, Lee Kane. So the Leavers are leaving the Boris administration, the Boris cabinet, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is bad news for Brexit,
Extremely.
because Johnson's rhetoric was very harsh, harsher than May's. Right? He said,
Yes.
"I'm going to leave the EU with or without a deal," and he finally had an arrangement of like when the deadline would be, and that was kind of like a little win for him. And then COVID came, and he became very politically weak in the COVID environment, um, because the the restrictions were not favorable to
Right.
his administration, and he had to acquiesce and go along. And he's come off not really knowing what he wants, or not seeming to know what he wants, and that has left his sort of "I'm gonna get us out of the EU, hell or high water" remarks falling flat. The largely behind the scenes influencer found himself in the limelight earlier in his this year when he was accused of breaching lockdown rules. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I heard about that.
Yeah, he went to visit his I don't know, relatives in the country or something.
Right. I watched the video. They were all
Yeah.
laughing.
So he's fallen on the outs. A former head of communications for the ruling Conservative Party is believed to be unhappy with the influence of some of her husband's close husband-to-be's closet aides. Johnson is looking to fill the post of chief of staff as a part of a wider reorganization. However, several members of parliament from within the Conservative Party have expressed dismay at the internal wrangling of Number 10 spilling out into the public domain. It comes at a time when growing unease on the Tory bench. Tories are just another word
Mm-hmm.
that the British have for conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
At the government's handling of the pandemic and economic damage being caused by the lockdown. So, just like the American political leaders, Johnson is in a bind between the rock and the hard place of, if I open things up, the virus will spread more and people will die and I will be blamed for those deaths. If I close things down more, I will squeeze the economy until there's not a drop of productivity left.
Sounds like the perfect time to do a trade deal.
It is, but again, so with a Trump administration, I would have said yes, because I think Trump would have seized on that. He would have come out, if he'd won the election, with a lot of political capital, clearly with stronger sort of Republican backing in some areas, and I think he would have turned around and said, "How about a deal?" Right? Because that's
Right.
his nature, right? He
Right.
waits until the circumstances are that his opponent is weaker and he can get more, which is probably exactly what he was waiting for. It's probably why we didn't have a deal last summer.
No.
Because if we had a deal last summer, it would have been on British terms that required us to do more socialist things with our medicine system than Trump could agree to in an election year.
Mm-hmm.
That said,
Well,
I
he's
don't
still
know if
president.
Biden is that sort of deal maker, and or I don't know how much longer Johnson is in power. I think you may see, the British Party, because they had that series of losses electorally. Uh, the British Democrat Party, what do they call themselves? Labour Party,
Yes, the labor.
sort of rooted out their extreme, like, ultra socialist bits, and they've put on a persona of being more moderate. So all
Well,
they have to do is wait like vultures
right,
for Johnson to be weak.
right. Well, they played whack-a-mole the last few months to quiet their more extremist groups, like be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Your time will come.
Yep.
Whether they want that or not is one thing, but they played whack-a-mole because look what you've done. Here we are, and as Sun Tzu says, now let your enemies make the mistake, just let them do it, and that's what's happening now. Maybe not completely their fault because of COVID, as you were saying, but it clearly is happening. I got a quick little question here for you. Little 4D, chess, if it's even possible considering the amount of time.
Yeah, shoot.
If you're Donald Trump, do you try to do some sort of little trade deal right now? Right now, while you got the opportunity, while the
All
British
treaties
are in
have
a
to be
very
ratified by the Senate.
right, right. I mean, but do you try something? Because then, by putting something into place, whether it's really good or not, is not kind of where I went ahead. Then, if Joe Biden doesn't like it, do you make Joe Biden look like the bad guy by getting rid of it?
There's no way the British are going to bend an inch on the NHS stuff, especially when they know they're negotiating with somebody who is theoretically in their lame duck term. They know they
Hmm.
only have to wait a couple of months and they'll get a pushover, comparably to what Trump
Oh yeah,
wants.
you're right. It works. It works more so in Biden's favor.
Yes.
Yes, it does. Yes.
So that's my prediction there. All right, we're just about out of time. I'm going to get into a little bit of culture. So, do you know who Epictetus was?
Oh, I know the name. Do remind me.
Yeah, I'll give you a little jog. He's a Stoic philosopher. His writings are very influential on people like Marcus Aurelius, and he was trained in the style of rhetoric that is passed down from Socrates. Right,
Mm-hmm.
so he's familiar with these characters. He himself did not live in Greece. He lived in the second century AD in Rome, and he was born a slave, and his master was a former slave who had been freed from Nero's service. Reportedly, his master treated him badly. Epictetus was lame, according to some reports, as a result of a crippling, uh, uh, punitive actions taken by his cruel master. But he showed a keen intellect at a young age and listened to a philosopher named Marsonius Rufus, who sort of took him in and was willing to give him sort of a free education, I gather. I mean, who would educate a slave? Maybe a Stoic philosopher would. Um, and he then earned his freedom. Epictetus did,
Mm-hmm.
and went on to teach philosophy. And then he was kicked out of Rome. At one point, Domitian was just like, I've had enough with these rabble on the streets. I'm going to kick all the philosophers out of Rome. And he moves to the western edge of Greece, a place called Epirus. It would be like on the Dalmatian coast today, I think. Um, don't quote me on that. But and then lives to a ripe old age, teaching philosophy as a lame man. But that's the life of Epictetus. And so it's interesting because he's a person who is preaching a philosophy that is about not giving a rat's tuchus about your circumstances, and a person whose circumstances, by every measure, are quite bad.
Obviously, being a slave.
Right. So if anybody has a platform from which to say these things, it should be him.
Mm-hmm.
So here I have the first of his sayings. He has an Enchiridion, sort of like a handbook, a guide to Stoicism. And there are 52 entries. So I'm just going to read entry number one, and then you tell me what you think, and we'll sign off.
All right.
All right. He says, some things are in our control and others are not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. The things in our control are by nature free, unrestrained, unhindered, but those not in our control are weak, slavish, restrained, belonging to others. Remember then that if you suppose that things which are slavish are if you suppose that things which are slavish by nature are also free, that what belongs to others is your own, then you will be hindered. You will lament. You will be disturbed, and you will find fault with both gods and men. But if you suppose only that only to be your own, which is your own, and what belongs to others is such as it really is, then no one will ever compel you or restrain you. Further, you will find fault with no one or accuse no one. You will do nothing against your own will. No one will be able to hurt you. You will have no enemies, and you will not be harmed. Aiming therefore at such great things, remember that you must not allow yourself to be carried, even with a slight tendency, towards the attainment of lesser things. Instead, you must entirely quit some things, for the present postpone the rest. But if you would both have these great things, along with power of riches, then you will not gain even the latter, because you aim at the former too. But you will absolutely fail at the former, by which alone happiness and freedom are achieved. Work therefore to be able to say to every harsh thing, you are but an appearance, and not absolutely the thing you appear to be. And then examine it by those rules which you have, and first, and chiefly by this, whether it concerns the things which are in your own control, or whether those things which are not. And if it concerns anything not in our control, be prepared to say that it is nothing.
So you want my opinion on just that that in itself? Wow, what a man that if I mean being lame, obviously if that in case is the truth, and coming from where he has come, this is clearly a man that has seen so much, and it sounds like at one point obviously resigned himself to what he deemed to be was going, what is going to be his fate, but then realized if I look at life this way and I attempt to control that which I cannot control, as you were referring, then I'm going to be constantly disappointed. I'm going to be constantly maybe able to succeed in certain ways here and there, but inevitably I'm going to be slapped down by that which I cannot control. So, I mean, he almost had to, again, resign himself. Just completely resign yourself to the things you can control because any concept of looking at the other side is not worth it.
Right.
That I can't get there. Maybe something will turn in my direction the way I want it in some instance, but to desire it, to think I can actually change things I cannot, is a wasteful part of my life and time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool um, thing he did, right? That we still have this stuff, and it's
Right.
still helpful to people.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a guy who doesn't have legs, basically,
Right.
and he's looking around and says, "Okay, what can I do?" Well, he can think. So, anyway, we'll
Um,
do more Epictetus next week. I look
yeah.
forward to your further reactions.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I'm so fascinated from what I know of Marcus Aurelius, and like, wow, that makes so much sense in so many ways.
Well, yeah, he wrote a handbook too. We'll get to him maybe eventually.
Yes, yes. So, all right. I mean, yeah, I guess this is the end of
Yeah,
our second episode, our second coming together and meeting. And I guess at this point we
yeah.
will adjourn the meeting.
We should call the Chabinet meeting to order.
Again, we still
Yep.
need a gavel. I will keep
Yep.
reminding it until we find one somewhere, something. But we'll just bring it up. It'll be the joke. Where is our gavel?
There is no gavel.
No
There
gavel.
might be
Yeah,
a
we can't.
lamp, but there's no gavel.
Yes, at some point we can't even swing the gavel, but we'll find something.
All
Maybe,
right, very
maybe
good.
not. All right. In that case, I am the department chair,
I am the cabinet.
and we will see you guys next time.